This human baby took Dying Bear Cub to the hospital. What happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun peeked through the trees surrounding the little cottage where Emily Morgan lived with her husband Nathan and their 10-month-old daughter Lily. Their home sat at the edge of Pinewood Forest, a place where wildlife and humans lived in an uneasy balance. The cottage had a small garden enclosed by a white picket fence, with a gate that sometimes didn't latch properly when the wind blew hard. That morning was special. Lily had just started crawling with more confidence, exploring her world on pudgy hands and knees. Emily placed a colorful blanket on the porch where she could watch Lily play with her toys while she hung laundry to dry in the gentle breeze. The birds sang their morning songs, and the forest seemed peaceful. "Look at you go, my little explorer," Emily said, smiling as Lily crawled toward a stuffed teddy bear lying near the edge of the blanket. Lily giggled, her bright blue eyes twinkling with joy as she reached for her favorite toy. But before her tiny fingers could grab it, a strange sound came from beyond the garden gate. It was faint at first, a whimper, almost like a child crying. Emily paused, a wet shirt dripping in her hands as she listened. "Did you hear that?" she asked, though she knew Lily couldn't answer. The sound came again, louder this time. A pained cry that made Emily's heart skip a beat. She quickly hung the shirt and walked to the edge of the porch, scanning the tree line for the source of the distress. That's when she saw it. A small, dark shape moving slowly through the tall grass beyond their garden. It stumbled, fell, and let out another pitiful cry. "Oh my goodness," Emily whispered, squinting to see better. "Is that a bear cub?" Her question was answered when the creature emerged into the clearing. It was indeed a bear cub, no bigger than a large dog. Its dark fur was matted with blood on one side, and it dragged its back leg as it moved. The poor thing looked terrified and in terrible pain. Emily's first instinct was fear. Where there was a cub, a mother bear might be nearby. She quickly turned to gather Lily from the blanket, but Lily wasn't there. "Lily?" Panic shot through Emily's chest. "Lily, where are you?" Her eyes darted frantically around the porch, then down to the garden. The gate was open, swinging gently in the breeze, and there, halfway between the gate and the injured bear cub, was her baby girl, crawling determinedly toward the wounded animal. "Lily!" No exclamation mark, Emily screamed, nearly falling down the porch steps in her rush to reach her daughter. But what happened next made her freeze in her tracks. The bear cub, seeing Lily approach, didn't run or growl. Instead, it collapsed onto its side, its small chest heaving with labored breaths. And Lily, innocent and fearless, continued her journey toward the suffering creature. Emily stood paralyzed, torn between rushing to snatch her baby away and the strange scene unfolding before her. The bear cub made no threatening moves. It just lay there, its eyes reflecting pain and something that looked surprisingly like hope. Lily finally reached the cub. Emily held her breath, ready to lunge forward at the slightest sign of danger. But there was no danger. Instead, Lily did what came naturally to her loving little heart. She placed her small hand on the cub's head and patted it gently, just as she did with her teddy bears. "Baba," Lily cooed softly, the sound floating on the morning air. The cub's eyes, filled with pain moments before, seemed to soften. It made no attempt to move away from the baby's touch. Instead, it let out a gentle whimper and closed its eyes. It was at that moment that Emily noticed the deep gash on the cub's side, the blood still slowly seeping into its fur. Whatever had happened to this poor creature, it needed help quickly. "Oh my God, what's happening here?" a voice called from the road. Emily turned to see Dr. James Bennett, their neighbor and the local veterinarian, standing by his truck. He must have been driving past when he spotted the bizarre scene. "James, please help," Emily called, finally finding her voice. "It's hurt badly." Dr. Bennett grabbed his medical bag from his truck and rushed toward them. When he reached the spot where Lily sat beside the injured cub, he knelt down slowly, careful not to frighten either of them. "Well, I'll be," he whispered, observing how Lily gently stroked the cub's fur while the wounded animal lay still, accepting her touch. "I've never seen anything like this." He carefully examined the cub without separating it from Lily. "This little one's in bad shape, Emily. Looks like it got caught in a trap. The leg might be broken, and this gash needs immediate attention." "Can you help it?" Emily asked, still standing a few feet away, her heart pounding. "I'll try, but we need to get it to the wildlife clinic in town. They have better equipment for treating wildlife." He looked at Lily, who was still calmly patting the cub's head. "The strange thing is, this cub should be terrified of humans, especially in its injured state. But your Lily here, it's like she's calming it somehow." As if to demonstrate his point, when Dr. Bennett tried to gently move the cub onto a blanket he'd brought from his truck, the animal whined and tried to resist despite its weakness. But when Lily made a soft babbling sound and touched its head again, the cub relaxed. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Bennett said, shaking his head in amazement. "Emily, I know this sounds crazy, but I think we might need Lily to come with us to the clinic. The cub seems to trust her. It might make transport and treatment easier, less stressful for the animal." Emily looked at her daughter, then at the wounded cub, then back to Dr. Bennett. "Are you sure it's safe? What about diseases, or what if it gets frightened?" "We'll be extremely careful. I'll hold Lily and my assistant can drive. The Wildlife Center has protocols for this kind of situation." He paused, then added, "Emily, this cub won't make it without immediate care. And right now, your daughter seems to be the only one it trusts." Emily took a deep breath, looking at her baby girl who somehow understood something that adults couldn't comprehend. That this wild creature needed kindness, not fear. "Let me call Nathan," she said, referring to her husband who was at work, "and I'll grab Lily's diaper bag." Within minutes, Emily had reached Nathan, who was rushing home from his office in town. Dr. Bennett had carefully moved the cub onto a blanket in the back of his truck, with Lily sitting nearby in Emily's lap, still reaching out occasionally to touch the bear's fur. The cub's eyes remained fixed on the baby, as if drawing strength from her presence. As they prepared to leave for the wildlife clinic, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing something extraordinary, something that defied explanation. Her baby, not even a year old, had somehow formed a connection with a wild, injured bear cub. And now they were about to take this strange pair to the hospital, with no idea what might happen next. The drive to the wildlife clinic felt eternal to Emily. She sat in the back of Dr. Bennett's truck, cradling Lily on her lap while keeping a watchful eye on the wounded cub lying on the blanket beside them. The animal's breathing was shallow and labored, each exhale coming with a faint whimper that tore at Emily's heart. "How much longer, James?" she called to the front, where Dr. Bennett was driving as quickly as he safely could on the winding forest road. "About 10 more minutes," he replied, his voice tense. "I've called ahead. They're preparing for our arrival." Emily looked down at Lily, who was unusually calm and focused for a baby her age. Typically, Lily would be squirming and babbling at this point, demanding to be set free to explore. But now, she sat quietly, her bright blue eyes fixed on the suffering cub. Occasionally, she would reach out a chubby hand toward it, making soft cooing sounds that seemed to soothe the animal. "It's going to be okay," Emily whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring her daughter, the bear cub, or herself. As they rounded a curve in the road, Emily noticed something alarming. The cub's eyes had closed, and its chest was barely moving. "James, I think it's getting worse," she called out, panic rising in her voice. Dr. Bennett accelerated, taking the remaining curves faster than Emily would have liked. She held Lily tighter, but to her surprise, her baby daughter squirmed and reached toward the cub with more urgency. "Baba," Lily insisted, straining against her mother's protective grip. "Lily, no," Emily said firmly, but her daughter was persistent. What happened next would stay etched in Emily's memory forever. Lily, with a strength and determination that seemed impossible for her small frame, broke free from her mother's hold and crawled the short distance to the bear cub. Before Emily could reclaim her, Lily had placed both hands on the cub's chest and leaned down, pressing her forehead against the animal's. "Lily," Emily gasped, reaching to pull her daughter back. But in that moment, the cub's eyes fluttered open. Its chest expanded with a deeper breath than before, and a soft rumble, almost like a purr, emanated from its throat. Dr. Bennett, hearing the commotion, glanced in the rearview mirror. "What's happening back there?" Emily couldn't find the words to explain the inexplicable scene. The cub is responding to her." They finally arrived at the Pinewood Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, a modest building nestled among tall pines at the edge of town. A team was waiting outside, led by Dr. Olivia Carter, the center's director and chief veterinarian. As soon as the truck stopped, the team rushed forward with a special stretcher designed for transporting injured wildlife. But when they tried to separate the cub from Lily, something unexpected happened. The previously weak animal let out a distressed cry and tried to move closer to the baby. "What in the world?" Dr. Carter exclaimed, stepping back in surprise. Dr. Bennett quickly explained the unusual bond they had witnessed. "I know it sounds crazy, Olivia, but this cub seems to have formed some kind of connection with this baby. It was barely hanging on during the drive, but when Lily touched it, it rallied." Dr. Carter looked skeptical but intrigued. "In all my years working with wildlife, I've never heard of such a thing." She studied the pair for a moment, her scientific mind clearly trying to make sense of the phenomenon. "But we need to get this cub into surgery immediately. Those wounds are severe. What if—" Emily began hesitantly. "What if Lily stays close by? Not in the surgery room, of course, but nearby. If her presence has been helping the cub fight to stay alive." Dr. Carter exchanged glances with her team, then nodded slowly. "We can set up in exam room 1. It has a large observation window. Maybe having the baby visible through the window would help keep the cub calm before anesthesia." They moved quickly after that. The team gently transferred the cub to the stretcher while Emily carried Lily alongside. As they entered the clinic, the smell of antiseptic and the bright fluorescent lights made Lily scrunch up her face in displeasure. Emily worried she might start crying, which would be perfectly normal for a baby in such an unfamiliar environment. Instead, Lily remained focused on the bear cub, reaching toward it and making small sounds as if trying to reassure it. The medical team watched in amazement as the injured wild animal kept its eyes on the human baby, remaining calm despite being surrounded by strangers in a frightening place. "In exam room 1, Doctor." Carter and her team prepared for emergency surgery, while Emily and Lily stood at the observation window in the adjacent room. Nathan arrived just as they were setting up, rushing through the clinic doors with panic written across his face. "Emily! Lily!" he called out, spotting them by the window. He hurried over, wrapping his arms around them both. "Are you okay? What happened? The bear cub? Is it still alive?" Emily quickly filled him in on everything. How Lily had discovered the injured cub, the strange bond that had formed between them, and their rushed journey to the wildlife clinic. Nathan looked through the window at the medical team working on the small bear, his expression a mixture of concern and disbelief. This is incredible, and a little terrifying, if I'm honest. He looked down at Lily, who was still watching the proceedings with unusual intensity for a baby. How is she being so calm about all this? Before Emily could respond, a commotion erupted in the exam room. The cub, which had been relatively still on the examination table, suddenly began thrashing weakly, its pained cries audible even through the glass. "Its vitals are dropping," they heard Dr. Carter shout. "We're losing it." Lily immediately responded to the cub's distress. She patted the glass with her small hands and began to cry, not the typical wail of a tired or hungry baby, but something that sounded almost like calling out to a friend. Dr. Carter glanced up, her eyes meeting Emily's through the window. A silent understanding passed between the two women. Dr. Carter made a quick gesture, beckoning them inside. "She wants us to bring Lily in," Emily said to Nathan, already moving toward the door. Nathan grabbed her arm. "Emily, wait. That's a wild animal in there. Even injured, it could be dangerous." "Look at her, Nathan," Emily replied, nodding toward their daughter who was still crying, and reaching toward the examination room. "She knows something we don't. I can't explain it, but I feel it. We need to trust her." Nathan hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but I'm holding her, and at the first sign of any danger, we're out of there." They entered the examination room cautiously. The air was thick with tension as the medical team worked frantically to stabilize the dying cub. Dr. Carter looked up as they approached, her surgical mask hiding most of her expression, but her eyes reflected her desperation. "I don't know if this will help," she said, "but at this point we've got nothing to lose. The cub's condition is critical." Nathan held Lily securely as they moved closer to the table. The baby immediately stopped crying, reaching out toward the bear with clear purpose. The cub, sensing Lily's presence, turned its head slightly despite its weakness. "Keep her at a safe distance, Doctor," Carter instructed, "but where the cub can see her." Nathan positioned himself so Lily was visible to the bear, but well out of reach. To everyone's astonishment, the monitors tracking the cub's vital signs began to show improvement. Its heart rate steadied, and its breathing became less erratic. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Carter murmured, watching the readings in disbelief. "Whatever connection exists between them, it's having a physiological effect on the cub." With the animal more stable, the team quickly administered anesthesia and continued their work. Emily and Nathan were asked to wait outside again during the actual surgery, but the brief intervention seemed to have given the cub the strength it needed to survive the procedure. As they sat in the waiting room, Nathan's arm around Emily's shoulders and Lily finally dozing in her carrier, a new worry began to form in Emily's mind. "What happens after?" she asked quietly. "If the cub survives and recovers, what then?" Nathan squeezed her shoulder. "Then it goes back to the wild, where it belongs. That's always the goal with wildlife rehabilitation." Emily nodded, but a hollow feeling settled in her stomach. She looked at their sleeping daughter and wondered how Lily would react when her new friend disappeared from her life. Despite the irrationality of it, Emily worried that the separation might affect her baby in ways they couldn't understand. After what seemed like hours, Dr. Carter emerged from the surgical area, removing her cap and mask as she approached them. Her expression was unreadable, and Emily felt her heart constrict with dread. "The surgery is complete," Dr. Carter announced, her voice revealing her exhaustion. The cub survived, which honestly is something of a miracle given the extent of its injuries. Emily and Nathan both exhaled in relief. "We removed fragments of a steel trap from its hind leg and repaired significant damage to the muscle tissue. The lacerations on its side were deep, but thankfully didn't penetrate any vital organs. We've administered antibiotics and pain medication." Dr. Carter paused, then added, "However, the next 24 hours will be critical. If it makes it through the night, its chances improve significantly. Can Lily see it?" Emily asked hesitantly. Dr. Carter's professional demeanor softened slightly. "The cub is in recovery now, heavily sedated. It's better not to disturb it. But perhaps tomorrow, if its condition stabilizes, we can arrange a brief visit. I'll be honest, I'm scientifically curious about this unusual bond." They thanked her and prepared to leave, but as they gathered their things, a staff member burst through the doors from the recovery area. "Dr. Carter, you need to come quickly," the young man exclaimed. "The cub is awake already and extremely agitated. It's trying to get up despite the sedation." Dr. Carter's eyes widened in alarm. "That shouldn't be possible with the dose we administered." She looked at Lily, who had awakened at the commotion and was now alert in her carrier. "Bring the baby," she said decisively, "just for a moment." They rushed back to the recovery area where the bear cub was indeed conscious and struggling weakly against its restraints, making pitiful sounds of distress. The moment they entered with Lily, the change was immediate and dramatic. The cub stopped thrashing and focused its gaze on the baby, its breathing slowing almost instantly. "I've never seen anything like this," Dr. Carter whispered, watching as Lily babbled happily at the sight of the cub. "It's as if they're communicating on some level we can't perceive." After consulting with her team, Dr. Carter made an unprecedented decision. "We've got an observation room adjacent to our intensive care unit. It's usually used for monitoring especially sensitive cases without disturbing them. If you're willing, I'd like to set up a space where Lily could be present, safely separated by glass but visible to the cub during its critical recovery period." Emily and Nathan exchanged glances, silently communicating their concerns and questions. "Just for tonight," Dr. Carter clarified. "If the cub makes it through the night, it will likely be strong enough to continue recovery without whatever this is." She gestured to the inexplicable connection between the baby and the bear. "I need to stay with Lily," Emily said firmly. "Of course," Dr. Carter agreed. "We can arrange comfortable accommodations for both of you." Nathan looked torn. "I should go home and get some things for you both. Overnight supplies, fresh clothes." He kissed Emily's forehead. "I'll be back as soon as I can." As night fell over the wildlife clinic, Emily found herself in a surreal situation. The observation room had been hastily converted into a makeshift bedroom with a hospital cot for her and Lily's portable crib, which Nathan had brought from home along with their overnight necessities. Through the large glass window, they could see the cub resting in its enclosure, connected to monitoring equipment that beeped softly in the quiet room. Lily, who should have been exhausted from the day's events, seemed energized by proximity to the bear. She stood in her crib, hands on the railing, watching the cub with unwavering attention. Occasionally, she would make soft sounds, and to Emily's amazement the cub would stir slightly in response, as if listening. Dr. Carter checked on them regularly, noting with increasing astonishment how the cub's vital signs strengthened whenever Lily was active and visible through the window. She took copious notes and occasionally whispered into a voice recorder, documenting the phenomenon that defied scientific explanation. Around midnight, Nathan returned with food for Emily and settled into an uncomfortable chair beside the cot. "How is our little bear whisperer doing?" he asked softly, stroking Lily's hair as she finally began to drift off to sleep. "Amazing," Emily replied. "Doctor?" "Carter says the cub is showing remarkable improvement, better than they could have hoped for." She hesitated, then added, "Nathan, do you think this is just a coincidence, or is something special happening here?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching their daughter sleep. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I'm a practical person. I believe in science and logical explanations. But today," he shook his head slowly, "today I saw something I can't explain." As the night deepened, Emily dozed fitfully, waking often to check on Lily and glance at the recovering cub beyond the glass. During one such moment of wakefulness, around 3 a.m., she noticed something odd. The lights in the recovery area had been dimmed, but she could see well enough to observe the cub's enclosure. What caught her attention was a faint, shimmering glow that seemed to emanate from where the cub lay. Emily blinked and rubbed her eyes, certain she was hallucinating from exhaustion. But when she looked again, the glow remained, a soft, pulsing light that reminded her of fireflies on a summer evening. More strangely, as she watched, she noticed a similar gentle glow surrounding Lily's crib. "Nathan," she whispered, shaking her husband's shoulder. "Nathan, wake up." He stirred groggily. "What is it? Is everything okay?" "Look." Emily pointed toward the window, then at Lily's crib. "Do you see that? That light?" Nathan squinted in the direction she indicated, then shook his head. "I don't see anything unusual. The monitoring equipment has some LEDs, but that's all." Emily stared in disbelief. The glow was clearly visible to her. 2 auras, one around the cub and one around her daughter, pulsing in perfect synchronization. Yet Nathan saw nothing. Before she could insist further, the door opened, and Dr. Carter entered looking tired but alert. "I'm sorry to disturb you," she said quietly, "but something unusual is happening with the cub's readings. Its recovery rate is, well, it's frankly impossible based on the severity of its injuries." Emily's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "The tissue regeneration we're seeing would normally take days, not hours," Dr. Carter explained, her scientific mind clearly struggling with the implications. "And its neurological responses are off the charts, in a positive way. It's as if—" She hesitated. "As if what?" Nathan prompted. "As if something is accelerating its healing beyond any natural process we've ever documented," Dr. Carter finished. She looked at the sleeping Lily, then back at Emily. "Has anything unusual happened during the night?" Emily opened her mouth to mention the strange glow she had seen, but something held her back. The logical part of her brain warned that talking about seeing mysterious lights would make her sound delusional. And if Nathan couldn't see it— "Nothing unusual," she said instead. "Lily has just been watching the cub, making her baby sounds. She only fell asleep a few hours ago." Dr. Carter nodded, making another note in her ever-present tablet. "Well, whatever's happening, it's beneficial for the cub. At this rate, it might be stable enough for release sooner than we could have hoped." She gave them a tired smile. "Try to get some rest. Morning will be here before you know it." After the doctor left, Emily moved to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass as she watched the sleeping cub. The glow had faded, but she was certain of what she had seen. Something extraordinary was happening between her daughter and this wild creature, something beyond scientific understanding. As dawn broke over the Wildlife Center, bringing with it the soft chorus of awakening birds, Emily was startled from her light sleep by an unfamiliar sound. Opening her eyes, she saw Lily standing in her crib again, babbling excitedly and pointing toward the recovery room. Emily looked through the window and gasped. The bear cub was not only awake, but standing on all four legs in its enclosure, looking directly at Lily. The monitoring equipment attached to it was beeping rapidly, alerting the staff to the unexpected activity. Within moments, Dr. Carter and two assistants rushed into the recovery room, their faces registering shock at the sight of the cub up and moving. Yesterday, this animal had been on the brink of death. Now it pawed at the glass separating it from Lily, making soft grunting sounds that Emily could hear even through the barrier. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Carter exclaimed, checking the monitors and shaking her head in disbelief. The tissue damage it sustained should have kept it immobile for at least a week. The commotion woke Nathan, who joined Emily at the window just as Dr. Carter entered their observation room. "I've never seen anything like this in my entire career," the veterinarian said, her scientific composure cracking slightly. "The cub's latest blood work shows no sign of infection. The surgical wounds are healing at an accelerated rate, and its vitals are those of a perfectly healthy young bear." She looked at Lily with undisguised wonder. "And every time your daughter makes a sound or movement, the cub responds immediately." "What does this mean?" Nathan asked, his arm tightening around Emily's waist. Dr. Carter shook her head slowly. "I don't know. By all medical logic, this cub should still be fighting for its life. Instead, ... She gestured to where the young bear was now standing on its hind legs, front paws against the glass, as it watched Lily with what could only be described as recognition. "There's something else," Emily said hesitantly, deciding to risk sounding foolish. "Last night I saw a strange light, like a glow around both Lily and the cub. It was pulsing in the same rhythm for both of them." She expected skepticism or concern, but Dr. Carter's expression showed neither. Instead, a look of intense interest crossed her face. "One of our night staff mentioned something similar," she said quietly. "He reported seeing an unusual luminescence in the recovery room around 3 a.m., but assumed it was equipment reflecting oddly in the dim light." She studied Lily thoughtfully. "I think it's time we brought in someone else. A colleague of mine specializes in unusual wildlife behaviors and interspecies communication. This goes beyond standard veterinary medicine." Within hours, the Wildlife Center had become a hub of quiet excitement. Dr. Aidan Hayes, a renowned wildlife behaviorist, arrived mid-morning and was quickly briefed on the extraordinary events. A tall man, with salt-and-pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he observed the interaction between Lily and the bear cub with the focused attention of a scientist witnessing a breakthrough. "In indigenous cultures around the world, there are stories of special connections between certain humans and animals," he explained as they watched Lily babbling happily at the cub, which remained fixated on her every movement. "Most modern scientists dismiss these as folklore, but I've documented several cases that suggest something more complex might be at work." "Like what?" Emily asked, bouncing Lily gently in her arms. The baby kept reaching toward the glass, clearly wanting closer contact with the cub. "Some individuals appear to possess a heightened empathic ability that extends beyond human-to-human interaction," Dr. Hayes continued. "It's most commonly observed in children, particularly very young ones who haven't yet developed the societal filters that might inhibit such connections." He smiled at Lily. "Your daughter may be one of these rare individuals." Nathan frowned skeptically. "Are you suggesting our baby is some kind of animal whisperer?" "I'm suggesting that the barriers we perceive between species may not be as rigid as modern science has assumed," Dr. Hayes replied calmly. "And your daughter, in her innocence, may be able to traverse those barriers in ways we can't comprehend." Emily thought about the synchronized glow she had witnessed in the night. But how does that explain the cub's accelerated healing? That's physical, not just behavioral. Dr. Hayes and Dr. Carter exchanged glances. That's where we enter territory that mainstream science isn't comfortable addressing, Dr. Hayes admitted. But there are documented cases of emotional states affecting physical healing rates. The mind-body connection is powerful, and we're only beginning to understand its potential. As they spoke, a new development caught their attention. The bear cub had retreated from the glass and was now pawing at the door of its enclosure, making increasingly distressed sounds. "It wants out," Dr. Carter observed. "It wants to get closer to Lily." "That wouldn't be safe," Nathan said immediately, his protective instincts flaring. "Even if there is some unusual bond, it's still a wild animal." Dr. Hayes studied the situation thoughtfully. "Perhaps we could arrange a more controlled interaction. A supervised visit in a secure room with all necessary precautions." Emily felt both anxiety and curiosity at the suggestion. Part of her wanted to protect Lily from any possible danger, but another part, the part that had witnessed the miraculous connection between her baby and this wild creature, wanted to understand it better. Before any decision could be made, the clinic's front desk called Dr. Carter to inform her that reporters had gathered outside the building. Word had somehow leaked about the unusual events, and the story of a human baby and a bear cub forming a healing bond had spread like wildfire through the small community. "This complicates things," Dr. Carter sighed. "Once the media gets involved, everything becomes more difficult." "We should go home," Nathan decided firmly. "Get Lily away from all this attention." But as they prepared to leave, slipping out through a back entrance to avoid the gathering press, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this strange connection between her daughter and the bear cub was not finished, that whatever had brought them together had a purpose yet to be fulfilled. At home that evening, Lily was inconsolable. She cried with an intensity Emily had never witnessed before, refusing her favorite foods and toys, pushing away comfort, and repeatedly making the same babbling sounds she had used with the bear cub. "She misses it," Emily realized aloud as she paced the living room, trying to soothe her distraught daughter. "It's like she's mourning." Nathan watched them worriedly from the kitchen doorway. "Babies form attachments quickly, but this seems extreme." "It's more than that," Emily insisted. "You saw how they were together. This isn't a normal attachment." As night fell, Lily's distress only increased. Her crying took on a desperate quality that tore at Emily's heart. When they finally got her to sleep after hours of exhausting effort, Emily collapsed onto the couch beside Nathan, emotionally drained. "I don't know what to do," she admitted, tears filling her eyes. "I've never seen her like this. It's like part of her is missing." Nathan pulled her close, his earlier skepticism softening in the face of their daughter's obvious suffering. "Maybe we should call Dr. Carter tomorrow, see how the cub is doing without Lily there." Emily nodded against his shoulder, but before she could respond, their phone rang. It was nearly midnight, far too late for casual calls. Nathan answered, his expression changing from annoyance to concern as he listened. "Yes, she's here, hold on." He handed the phone to Emily. "It's Doctor. Carter, something's happened with the cub." Emily's heart raced as she took the phone. "Hello?" "Emily, I'm sorry to call so late." Dr. Carter's voice was tense. "But the cub's condition has deteriorated dramatically since you left. It's refusing food and water, and its vital signs are weakening by the hour. It's as if—" She hesitated. "It's as if it's lost the will to live." Emily closed her eyes, thinking of Lily's inconsolable crying. "Our daughter has been the same way. She won't stop crying, won't eat properly. It's like she's in mourning." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I think we need to consider the possibility that separating them was a mistake," Dr. Carter finally said. "Whatever this connection is, breaking it seems to be harming both of them." "What are you suggesting?" Emily asked, though she already knew the answer. "I'd like you to bring Lily back to the center tomorrow morning," Dr. Carter replied. "Under controlled conditions, with all safety measures in place, I want to observe what happens when they're reunited." After hanging up, Emily relayed the conversation to Nathan, who looked troubled. "I don't like the idea of deliberately putting Lily in proximity to a wild predator, connection or no connection." "But you've seen what's happening to her," Emily countered, "and now the cub is suffering too. Don't we owe it to both of them to at least try to understand what's happening?" They debated long into the night, their parental instincts to protect warring with the undeniable evidence that something extraordinary was occurring, something that might be crucial to both their daughter's well-being and the cub's survival. By morning, they had reached a tentative agreement. They would return to the Wildlife Center, but with strict conditions. Lily would never be without one of them holding her. Physical contact with the cub would be minimal and heavily supervised, and they could end the experiment at any moment if they felt uncomfortable. When they arrived at the center, they found it surrounded by even more media vehicles than the day before. News of the unusual bond had spread beyond their small town, attracting attention from regional and even national outlets. Dr. Carter met them at a private entrance, her face drawn with fatigue. The cub's condition continued to worsen overnight, she informed them as she led them through back corridors to avoid the press. "It's barely responsive at this point." "And how is Dr. Hayes?" Emily asked, referring to the wildlife behaviorist. "He's been up all night monitoring the cub and researching similar cases," Dr. Carter replied. "He's fascinating, actually. His work straddles the line between conventional science and more alternative perspectives." They arrived at a new location within the facility, a spacious room with a comfortable seating area on one side and a large enclosed space on the other, separated by a low barrier rather than a solid wall or glass. The cub lay listlessly in the enclosure, its previously improved condition now visibly deteriorated. The moment they entered, Lily, who had been fussing in Emily's arms, suddenly went quiet. Her head turned toward the cub, and she made a soft cooing sound that carried across the room. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The cub's ears perked up, and it raised its head, looking directly at Lily. Dr. Hayes, who had been sitting quietly in a corner taking notes, stood up. "Remarkable," he murmured. "The physiological response is instantaneous." Sure enough, the monitors attached to the cub showed immediate improvement in its vital signs. Heart rate strengthened, respiration deepened, and an EEG machine recorded increased brain activity. Lily recognized the sound of the cub before she even saw it, Emily observed, watching as her daughter strained toward the enclosure, making insistent noises. Dr. Hayes approached them, his expression intense. "May I suggest something that might sound unusual?" Nathan looked wary, but nodded for him to continue. "Indigenous wisdom from multiple cultures describes certain children as having special spiritual connections to the natural world, particularly to specific animal species," Dr. Hayes explained. "These children are often referred to as having animal souls, or being bridge walkers between the human and animal realms." Emily felt a strange resonance with his words, remembering the synchronized glowing she had witnessed. "You think Lily is one of these children?" "I think it's a possibility worth considering, Doctor," Hayes replied carefully. "The timing of your daughter finding this particular cub, the immediate bond that formed, the physiological effects they have on each other, These align with the patterns described in such cases. Nathan looked skeptical, but less dismissive than Emily had expected. The evidence before their eyes was hard to deny. So, what does this mean for Lily? And for the cub? That's what we need to discover, Dr. Hayes said. With your permission, I'd like to try something. After explaining his proposal and obtaining their nervous consent, Dr. Hayes arranged for Emily to sit on a cushioned bench near the enclosure barrier, holding Lily securely on her lap. Nathan positioned himself beside them, ready to intervene if necessary. Dr. Carter and her staff stood by with tranquilizer equipment, just in case. Slowly, Dr. Hayes opened a small gate in the barrier. The cub, which had been watching Lily intently, rose shakily to its feet and took tentative steps toward the opening. Everyone in the room held their breath as the young bear emerged from its enclosure and approached Emily and Lily. Lily squealed with delight, reaching out toward the cub with eager hands. The bear, moving with surprising gentleness for a wild creature, came closer until it was just a foot away from them. Then it did something astonishing. It sat down on its haunches and tilted its head, almost like a dog might when curious. "Don't move," Dr. Hayes instructed softly. "Let them set the pace." Emily's heart pounded as she watched her baby daughter and the wild bear cub regard each other with what could only be described as recognition. Then, as if they'd planned it, both Lily and the cub raised a hand-paw at the same moment, reaching toward each other. When their touch connected, tiny human fingers against a soft bear paw, the room seemed to hold its breath. Emily felt a strange warmth spread through her body, emanating from where Lily sat on her lap. Looking down, she saw it again, the soft glow she had witnessed in the night, now visible in daylight, enveloping both her daughter and the bear cub in a gentle luminescence. "Do you see that?" she whispered urgently. The light around them. To her surprise, everyone in the room nodded, their faces reflecting wonder and disbelief. "It's beautiful, Doctor." Carter breathed, her scientific skepticism momentarily forgotten. The glow intensified as Lily and the cub maintained contact, pulsing with a rhythm that somehow felt ancient and familiar at once. With the sounds of the gathering crowd growing louder outside, they had no time for further discussion. Dr. Carter quickly led them through a maze of corridors to the back exit, while two staff members carefully transported the cub in a special carrier. To everyone's relief, both Lily and the cub remained calm as long as they could see each other. They managed to load into Dr. Carter's SUV without being spotted, Emily, Nathan, and Lily in the back seat, the cub's carrier secured beside them, and Dr. Hayes in the front passenger seat with Dr. Carter driving. As they pulled away from the wildlife center, Emily caught glimpses of the crowd through the tinted windows. Reporters with cameras, curious onlookers, and a small group holding signs with religious messages. "This is insane," Nathan muttered, his arm protectively around Emily and Lily. "How did it get out so quickly?" "Social media," Dr. Carter replied grimly, navigating the back roads to avoid being followed. "Someone at the center must have leaked the photo and story. In today's world, that's all it takes." Dr. Hayes turned in his seat to face them. "I know this is overwhelming, but we need to think about next steps. The media attention will only increase as this story spreads." "What options do we have?" Emily asked, watching as Lily reached toward the carrier, making soft cooing sounds that the cub answered with gentle grunts. "I have a colleague, Doctor, Rebecca Mitchell, who runs a private wildlife sanctuary about 3 hours north of here," Dr. Hayes suggested. "It's remote, secure, and not open to the public. The cub could be safely housed there while we study this connection further. And how would that work with Lily? Nathan questioned skeptically. The sanctuary has guest accommodations. You could visit regularly, allowing Lily and the cub to maintain their bond in a controlled environment away from public scrutiny. Emily and Nathan exchanged uncertain glances. The idea of regular trips to a remote sanctuary seemed impractical with their work schedules and normal life, but the alternative, completely separating Lily from the cub, now seemed potentially harmful based on what they'd witnessed. Before they could discuss it further, Dr. Carter's phone rang through the car's speaker system. It was her head nurse at the clinic, sounding panicked. "Olivia, we have a serious situation here. Someone from the Forest Service just arrived with paperwork. They're claiming jurisdiction over the bear cub as an endangered species. They're demanding immediate transfer to their facilities for proper assessment and care." Dr. Carter's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. That makes no sense. Black bears aren't endangered in this state, and we have all the proper permits for wildlife rehabilitation. "They're saying it's not a black bear," the nurse replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The agent is claiming it might be a rare subspecies that requires special handling. But Olivia, he didn't even want to see our medical records. I think this is about the healing story." A heavy silence fell over the car as the implications sank in. Government involvement added a new and concerning dimension to an already complicated situation. "Tell them I'm off-site with the animal for emergency treatment," Dr. Carter instructed. "Buy us some time. I'll call our legal team." After ending the call, she took a deep breath. This is escalating quickly. If government agencies get involved, this could become much more complicated. Dr. Hayes nodded gravely. The scientific implications alone would attract significant attention. Add in the potential for exploitation of what some might view as a miracle cure, and we're looking at a perfect storm. "What are you saying?" Emily asked, unconsciously holding Lily tighter. "I'm saying that what your daughter can do, this healing connection, could be viewed as immensely valuable by certain parties. Pharmaceutical companies, research institutions, even government agencies might have an interest in studying or even trying to replicate it." Nathan's expression darkened. "They're not studying our daughter like some lab specimen." "I completely agree, Doctor," Hayes assured him, "which is why we need to think carefully about how to proceed." As Dr. Carter continued driving, taking an increasingly circuitous route to ensure they weren't being followed, Emily found herself staring at the carrier containing the bear cub. Through the mesh side, she could see its dark eyes watching Lily with unmistakable intelligence and what looked almost like devotion. "I think we should accept Dr. Hayes' suggestion," she said finally. "The sanctuary sounds like the safest option right now for both Lily and the cub." Nathan looked torn. "And what about our lives, our jobs? We can't just drop everything indefinitely." "Perhaps a compromise," Dr. Hayes suggested. "An initial stay of a week or two at the sanctuary to establish the cub and assess the ongoing nature of this connection. Dr. Mitchell is not only a wildlife expert, but has also documented several cases of unusual animal-human bonds. She might provide insights we haven't considered." As they debated, Lily suddenly let out a distressed cry. At the same moment, sounds of agitation came from the cub's carrier. Emily looked down to see the same faint glow beginning to emanate from both her daughter and the young bear. "It's happening again," she said urgently. "The glowing!" Dr. Carter glanced in the rearview mirror, her eyes widening. "What triggers it? Do we know?" Dr. Hayes was already taking photographs with his phone. "Fascinating. Both subjects appear to be responding to some shared stimulus we can't perceive." Nathan leaned toward the carrier, then pulled back in surprise. The cub, its leg. Look at the bandage. Everyone, except Dr. Carter, who was driving, turned to look. The bandage covering the cub's surgically repaired hind leg was bulging and shifting, as if something underneath was moving rapidly. "Pull over," Dr. Hayes said urgently. "We need to check this." Dr. Carter found a secluded turnout on the rural road and stopped the car. With careful movements, she and Dr. Hayes opened the carrier enough to examine the cub, while Nathan and Emily kept Lily at a safe distance. Though she continued reaching toward the animal, the glow around her intensifying. "This is impossible," Dr. Carter breathed as she gently removed the bandage. "The surgical site is completely healed, not just closed, healed. There's new fur growth, no scarring, no sign of trauma at all." She ran professional hands over the cub's leg. "And the bone structure feels completely normal, as if it was never broken." Dr. Hayes was documenting everything with his phone camera, his scientific mind clearly racing to process what he was witnessing. The accelerated healing we saw at the clinic is continuing, possibly even intensifying. He looked at Lily with renewed wonder. "Your daughter's connection to this cub is facilitating cellular regeneration at a rate that defies everything we know about mammalian biology." The glow surrounding Lily and the cub pulsed once more, then gradually faded. The baby girl yawned suddenly, her eyelids drooping as if the energy expenditure had exhausted her. "She gets tired after," Emily observed, stroking Lily's hair as she began to drift toward sleep. "I noticed it yesterday, too, after they connected." Dr. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "That suggests there's an energy transfer component to this healing process. Fascinating." They carefully secured the cub in its carrier again and continued their journey, the mood in the car now even more contemplative. The implications of what they were witnessing seemed to grow with each new development. After an hour of driving through increasingly rural landscapes, Dr. Carter pulled onto a hidden dirt road that led deep into the forest. "I've made a decision," she announced. "We're not going to your home. It won't be safe there, not with the media attention this story's getting." "Then where are we going?" Nathan asked, his concern evident. "My family has a cabin about 20 miles from here. It's remote, off the grid, and very few people know about it. You'll be safe there while we figure out our next steps." Emily felt a surge of gratitude toward this veterinarian who had gone far beyond professional duty to help them. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. We appreciate everything you're doing." "Call me Olivia," she replied with a small smile. "I think we're well past formalities at this point." As they drove deeper into the forest, the road becoming rougher and less defined, Emily found herself reflecting on how quickly their lives had changed. Just yesterday morning, they had been a normal family living a quiet life. Now they were essentially in hiding, accompanying their baby daughter who apparently possessed some miraculous healing connection with a wild bear cub. It seemed like the plot of a fantasy novel, not real life. And yet, looking down at Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms, and at the cub that had also drifted to sleep in its carrier, Emily couldn't deny the reality of what was happening. Something extraordinary had entered their lives, something that defied rational explanation but demanded acknowledgement. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was more substantial than Emily had imagined. A sturdy 2-story structure built of logs and stone, nestled in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines. A stream bubbled nearby, its gentle sound immediately soothing after the tension of their journey. "It's been in my family for 3 generations," Olivia explained as she unlocked the heavy wooden door. "My grandfather built it, my father expanded it, and I modernized it. Solar power, satellite internet, rainwater collection system, It's rustic but fully functional. Inside, the cabin was a perfect blend of traditional and modern. Wooden beams and a stone fireplace coexisting with contemporary furnishings and updated appliances. Large windows offered views of the forest from every angle, and a wraparound porch provided outdoor living space. "This is amazing," Nathan admitted, his anxiety visibly easing in the peaceful setting. "And you're sure no one knows about this place?" "The property is registered under a family trust, not my name," Olivia assured him. "And I've never posted about it online or brought colleagues here. It's my private sanctuary." While Olivia and Nathan brought in supplies from the car, Dr. Hayes helped Emily set up a comfortable space for Lily in what appeared to be a study converted to a bedroom. The baby was still sleeping soundly, the events of the day having thoroughly exhausted her. "What do we do about the cub?" Emily asked quietly. "It can't stay in that carrier indefinitely." Dr. Hayes considered the question thoughtfully. "The back porch is screened in. We could create a temporary enclosure there, close enough for the cub to sense Lily's presence, but separate enough for safety." As they discussed arrangements, Lily stirred in her sleep, making soft sounds that immediately drew responding grunts from the cub in its carrier nearby. Even unconscious, their connection remained active. By evening, they had settled into an uneasy but functional routine. The cub had been installed in a makeshift enclosure on the screened porch, with comfortable bedding and water. Olivia had examined it thoroughly and confirmed that its recovery continued to defy medical explanation. All injuries were healing at an accelerated rate, and its behavior appeared completely normal for a young bear, aside from its unusual focus on Lily. They gathered around the large dining table, sharing a simple meal that Olivia had prepared from supplies in the well-stocked pantry. The conversation inevitably turned to their situation and potential next steps. "I've been thinking about what we witnessed today," Dr. Hayes began, his academic demeanor tinged with genuine wonder. "The healing connection between Lily and the cub appears to be strengthening rather than diminishing with time." "Is that good or bad?" Nathan asked, his protective nature evident in his tone. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Hayes replied carefully. "But based on my observations, it doesn't appear harmful to either of them. In fact, quite the opposite. The cub's physical recovery is remarkable, and Lily seems content and healthy aside from the temporary fatigue after healing sessions." Olivia nodded in agreement. "Medically speaking, I see no signs of negative effects on either of them, but the implications are, well, enormous. Speaking of which," Dr. Hayes continued, checking his phone, "the story has gone viral. It's trending on multiple platforms and major news outlets have picked it up." He showed them the screen, where headlines ranged from "Miracle Baby Heals Wild Bear" to "Supernatural Healing Powers Discovered in Infant." Emily's stomach clenched with anxiety. "Have they identified us? Published our names or where we live?" "Not yet, from what I can see. The initial leak was limited to the incident itself, not personal details, but it's only a matter of time before someone connects the dots." Nathan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "So, we're just supposed to hide out here indefinitely? That's not a solution." "No, it's not," Olivia agreed, "but it gives us time to develop a proper plan." She turned to Dr. Hayes. "Were you serious about the wildlife sanctuary? Could that really be an option?" He nodded. "I spoke with Dr. Mitchell while you were setting up the cub's enclosure. She's intrigued by what I've described and willing to help. The sanctuary is private property, highly secure, and already equipped for research alongside animal care." "And what exactly would happen there?" Emily asked, trying to envision what such an arrangement would mean for their family. Dr. Mitchell proposes a dual approach, Dr. Hayes explained. The cub would be housed in a specialized natural enclosure, spacious, appropriate for its needs, but secure. You and Lily would stay in the researcher's lodge on the property, allowing for regular controlled interaction. The goal would be to better understand this connection while ensuring both Lily's and the cub's well-being. For how long? Nathan pressed. Dr. Hayes spread his hands. That's difficult to predict. Initially, perhaps 2 weeks of observation. After that, we'd have a better understanding of the bond's nature and could discuss longer-term arrangements. As they debated the proposal, a sudden crash from the screened porch interrupted their conversation. They rushed to investigate and found the cub had somehow managed to break through part of its enclosure. Instead of trying to escape, however, it was pawing at the door leading into the house, the direction where Lily lay sleeping. How did it do that? Nathan asked, alarmed. Those barriers were secure. Olivia checked the damaged panel with professional interest. It seems to have focused all its strength on one connection point, almost as if it knew exactly where the weakness was. She looked at Dr. Hayes. That's remarkably strategic thinking for such a young bear. Dr. Hayes was observing the cub with intense fascination. The intelligence it's displaying is well beyond normal developmental parameters for its age and species. He looked toward the room where Lily slept. I wonder. At that moment, they heard Lily crying from the bedroom. Emily rushed to check on her, finding her daughter standing in the portable crib, tears streaming down her face as she reached toward the door in the exact direction of the porch where the cub was located. "Baba!" Lily cried, using the same sound she had made when first encountering the cub. "Baba!" The cub, hearing Lily's cries, responded with increasingly distressed sounds, pawing more urgently at the door. They're calling to each other, Emily realized aloud. Dr. Hayes entered the bedroom cautiously. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward Lily. Emily nodded, and he approached the crib, observing the baby closely without touching her. "Look at her pupils," he said quietly. "They're dilated, even though the room is well lit, and there's that faint luminescence again, just beginning around her hands." Sure enough, Emily could see the soft glow starting to emanate from Lily's fingers as she reached out, crying for the cub. "I think we're witnessing an aspect of their connection we haven't seen before," Dr. Hayes continued. "It's not just healing. It's communication of some kind." Nathan had joined them in the doorway, his expression troubled. "It's upsetting her. Should we bring the cub in? Is that safe?" Before anyone could answer, Olivia's phone rang. She stepped away to answer it, returning moments later with a grim expression. "That was my head nurse," she said tensely. 2 men, claiming to be from a government research division, showed up at the clinic with documentation demanding custody of the bear cub. When told it wasn't there, they presented a warrant to search the premises. She paused, her expression darkening further. And they had another document, an order regarding a human subject involved in unexplained biological phenomena. A cold silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. "They're looking for Lily," Emily whispered, instinctively moving closer to her daughter. Nathan's face hardened. How did they even know to connect her to the clinic? The story didn't have our names. "Someone must have talked," Olivia said grimly. "One of the staff, maybe someone who saw you there." Dr. Hayes looked deeply troubled. "This escalates matters considerably. If a government research division is involved, they likely have resources far beyond local authorities." "What kind of research division are we talking about?" Nathan demanded. "It could be legitimate NIH CDC, something studying unusual medical phenomena," Dr. Hayes replied. "Or it could be something less transparent. There are agencies interested in anomalous human abilities that operate with minimal oversight. Emily felt sick at the thought. They can't just take our daughter. That's not legal. Under normal circumstances, no, Dr. Hayes agreed. But when phenomena defy scientific explanation, lines can blur. National security, public health concerns, these can be powerful justifications for extraordinary measures. Lily's cries had intensified, as had the cub's distressed sounds from the porch. The situation felt like it was spiraling beyond their control. We need to leave, Nathan decided, his protective instincts in full force. Now, tonight. We can't risk them finding us here. And go where? Emily asked, bouncing Lily gently in an attempt to calm her. The sanctuary, Dr. Hayes said firmly. It's our best option. Dr. Mitchell has experience with sensitive cases, and the property has robust security measures. Most importantly, it's registered as a private wildlife research facility with all proper permits, which would make any attempt to seize the cub or access the premises legally complicated. Olivia nodded in agreement. He's right, and we should move quickly. My nurse didn't give them any information about my whereabouts, but they're resourceful. They could track my car or phone. They moved into action with urgent efficiency. While Olivia gathered essential supplies and Dr. Hayes contacted Dr. Mitchell to finalize arrangements, Emily and Nathan packed their few belongings and prepared Lily for travel. The cub was carefully returned to its carrier, though it took considerable effort given its determination to reach Lily. My truck has a tracking system for the wildlife center, Olivia realized as they prepared to leave. We can't use it. My car is at the clinic, Doctor, Hayes added, frowning. Nathan thought quickly. Does your family trust own any other vehicles? Something registered separately from you personally? Olivia's eyes lit up. Yes, my father's old Land Rover. It's in the shed behind the cabin. I maintain it for emergencies, but it's registered to the trust, not to me personally. The vehicle, when they retrieved it, was a sturdy older model without any modern tracking technology, perfect for their needs. They loaded their supplies, secured the cub's carrier, and left the cabin shortly after midnight. Olivia took a moment to activate the security system and remove any obvious signs of their brief stay. As they drove through the darkness, following remote forest roads that would eventually connect to highways leading north, the gravity of their situation sank in. They were effectively on the run, not from criminal charges or legal problems, but from interest in a phenomenon they themselves didn't understand. I've been thinking, Dr. Hayes said softly, breaking the tense silence that had fallen over the car, about the nature of the connection between Lily and the cub. Emily, who sat in the back seat with a finally sleeping Lily beside the cub's carrier, looked up. What about it? There are stories in many indigenous cultures about individuals born with special connections to particular animal species. These connections were viewed not as supernatural, but as a different kind of natural, a balancing of energies between human and animal realms. You think that's what's happening with Lily? Nathan asked from the driver's seat, his voice betraying his fatigue and stress. I think it's a framework worth considering, Dr. Hayes replied carefully. The Western scientific tradition tends to categorize phenomena as either natural or supernatural, with anything unexplainable pushed into the latter category. But perhaps we're simply witnessing a natural phenomenon that exists outside our current understanding. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. As a veterinarian, I've sometimes observed connections between animals and humans that defy simple explanation. Therapy animals that somehow know exactly what a patient needs. Working dogs that anticipate commands before they're given. But this is different, Emily said, looking down at her sleeping daughter. Lily is healing physical injuries, generating visible energy. That goes beyond emotional connection. Yes, it does, Doctor, Hayes agreed. Which is why I've been researching similar documented cases throughout history. This caught everyone's attention. You've found others like this? Nathan asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. Not exactly like this, but with intriguing parallels. There was a case in 1887 in rural Norway. A young girl who reportedly could calm injured wolves, leading to a local legend about a wolf healer. Multiple witness accounts described a soft light surrounding both child and animal. He continued, his academic passion momentarily overshadowing their precarious situation. More recently, in 1974, researchers in Mongolia documented a boy with an unusual affinity for injured eagles. Local shamans claimed he possessed the spirit of an eagle healer from their ancestral traditions. Western doctors who observed him noted unusual brainwave synchronization between the boy and injured birds. Were these children studied? What happened to them? Emily asked, both curious and anxious about the implications for Lily. Dr. Hayes's expression grew somber. That's where the records become sparse. In most cases, the children and their families disappeared from public view. Whether by choice or other circumstances isn't clear. A heavy silence fell over the car as they all contemplated what that might mean. Well, that's not happening to Lily, Nathan said firmly, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Whatever this is, whatever it means, we're going to protect her right to a normal life. As dawn broke over the forest, casting long shadows across the road ahead, they finally approached the turnoff that would lead them to Dr. Mitchell's sanctuary. The journey had been tense but uneventful, with no signs of pursuit. Both Lily and the cub had slept peacefully through most of the night, waking occasionally but calming quickly when they sensed each other's presence. The sanctuary was located on over 1,000 acres of private land, surrounded by a high fence with security features disguised to blend with the natural environment. As they approached the main gate, a camera swiveled to focus on them, and moments later the heavy steel barrier swung open. Dr. Rebecca Mitchell was waiting for them at the main building. A talented woman in her 50s with streaks of gray in her dark hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. After quick introductions, she led them to a private wing of the research center where comfortable living quarters had been prepared. "I've arranged for you to stay in our residential research suite," she explained, showing them a spacious apartment with modern amenities. "It's normally used for visiting scientists conducting long-term studies." "And the cub?" Olivia asked, professional concern evident in her voice. "We've prepared a specialized enclosure connected to this wing," Dr. Mitchell replied. "It's designed for young bears. Spacious, enriched, with proper safety features but close enough to maintain whatever connection exists." As they settled in, Dr. Mitchell observed Lily with undisguised scientific interest. "Aidan has shared his observations and documentation with me. I must say, in 30 years of wildlife research, I've never encountered anything quite like this." Emily felt protective instincts flare. "We agreed to come here for safety and to better understand what's happening, but Lily is not a research subject." Dr. Mitchell's expression softened. "Of course not. She's a child first and foremost. Any observations would be entirely non-invasive and only with your full consent." She hesitated, then added, "That said, understanding this connection might be important not just for science, but for Lily herself as she grows older." It was a perspective Emily hadn't fully considered, that Lily might someday need to understand her own unusual abilities. The cub was carefully transferred to its new enclosure, which connected to their living space via a large observation window. The young bear immediately explored its surroundings, but kept returning to the window where it could see Lily in her playpen on the other side. "The intelligence it's displaying is remarkable," Dr. Mitchell observed. "Bears are smart animals, but this level of focused awareness is unusual, especially in one so young." After they had settled in and everyone had rested, Dr. Mitchell gathered them in a comfortable meeting room adjacent to their living quarters. Large screens displayed security camera feeds from around the sanctuary perimeter, a reminder of their need for caution. "I think it's time we discuss what we know and what we don't," she began, her manner professional but kind. "And more importantly, what our options are moving forward." Dr. Hayes nodded agreement. "Based on everything we've observed, the connection between Lily and this cub appears to be a genuine biological phenomenon, not explainable by current scientific understanding. The healing aspect is the most medically significant," Olivia added. "The cub's injuries should have taken weeks or months to heal completely. Instead, they've essentially resolved in days." "And there's the energetic component," Emily said quietly. "The visible glow, the apparent fatigue Lily experiences afterward." Dr. Mitchell listened attentively, taking notes on a tablet. "And the communication aspect? You mentioned they seem to respond to each other's distress?" Nathan nodded. "When they're separated, they both become agitated. When they can see each other, they calm down immediately." "My working hypothesis," Dr. Hayes offered, "is that we're observing a multi-layered phenomenon. Empathic connection, energy transfer facilitating accelerated healing, and some form of nonverbal communication. The question is," Dr. Mitchell said thoughtfully, "is this connection temporary or permanent? Will it diminish over time as the cub recovers fully, or is this a lifelong bond?" It was a question that had been weighing heavily on Emily's mind. A temporary connection was one thing, unusual, certainly, but manageable. A permanent bond between her daughter and a wild bear raised far more complex questions. "There's another consideration, Doctor," Mitchell continued, her expression growing more serious. "The interest from governmental or other agencies. Aiden mentioned men with warrants appearing at your clinic, Olivia." Olivia nodded grimly. "They had documentation that looked official, though I couldn't verify its authenticity since I wasn't there. But my nurse said they were very determined and mentioned a matter of national interest." Dr. Mitchell frowned. "That's concerning. There are legitimate research interests in unusual biological phenomena, but the approach described suggests something more aggressive. So, what do we do?" Nathan asked, the strain of their situation evident in his voice. "We can't hide forever. We have jobs, a home, a life. I have some contacts in regulatory oversight for biological research," Dr. Mitchell offered. "People who could potentially verify if this is a legitimate governmental interest and what its parameters are, without revealing your location, of course." "And in the meantime," Emily prompted. "In the meantime, I propose we conduct some basic observational studies of the connection between Lily and the cub. Nothing invasive. Simple monitoring of vital signs during interaction, documentation of the healing process, perhaps some gentle tests of the range and limitations of their bond." She looked directly at Emily and Nathan. "With your full participation and veto power at every step." They discussed the proposal at length, setting clear boundaries and establishing a structured plan for the coming days. Emily and Nathan would be present for all interactions, with the right to halt any observation they found concerning. The focus would be on understanding, not exploitation, with Lily's well-being the paramount consideration. As night fell over the sanctuary, bringing with it a profound silence broken only by distant animal sounds. Emily stood at the observation window watching Lily and the cub. Her daughter had insisted on staying near the window until bedtime, babbling happily at the young bear, who watched her with equal fascination from its side of the glass. "It's beautiful in a way," Nathan said softly, coming to stand beside her. "Frightening and confusing, but beautiful too." Emily nodded, leaning against him. "Do you think we did the right thing, coming here?" "I think we did the only thing we could," he replied honestly. "We need to understand what's happening, and we need to keep her safe while we figure it out." As they watched, Lily pressed her small hand against the glass. The cub immediately mirrored the gesture, placing its paw in the exact same spot on its side. A soft glow began to emanate from both points of contact, visible even through the barrier. "They're connecting through the glass," Emily whispered in amazement. The glow pulsed gently, not as intense as during direct contact, but definitely present. It continued for several minutes before gradually fading, leaving both Lily and the cub looking content and peaceful. "Whatever this is," Nathan said quietly, "it's part of who she is now, and we'll figure it out together." In the days that followed, they established a careful routine at the sanctuary. Mornings were devoted to controlled observation sessions, where Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Hayes documented the interactions between Lily and the cub, which had been named Echo, due to its tendency to mirror Lily's movements and sounds. They discovered several important aspects of the connection. First, the healing bond continued to function even through the glass barrier, though with reduced intensity. When Echo developed a small cut from playing with enrichment toys, Lily placed her hand against the window, and the familiar glow appeared, healing the minor injury within minutes. Second, the range of their connection seemed limited to proximity. When Lily was taken to another part of the sanctuary beyond a certain distance, both she and Echo became distressed until reunited. Dr. Mitchell calculated the effective range at approximately 100 meters. Third, and perhaps most intriguingly, Echo was developing at an accelerated rate both physically and cognitively. Bears his age typically displayed certain developmental markers, but Echo was far exceeding these benchmarks. Problem-solving, memory, even what appeared to be rudimentary symbol recognition when Dr. Mitchell introduced simple pictorial communication tools. "It's as if the connection is enhancing his cognitive development," Dr. Hayes theorized during their evening discussion session, which raises fascinating questions about the bidirectional nature of their bond. "What do you mean?" Emily asked, glancing toward where Lily was happily playing with blocks, occasionally looking up to check that Echo was still visible through the window. "We've been focusing primarily on what Lily does for Echo, the healing, the calming effect. But what if Echo is also influencing Lily in ways we haven't fully recognized?" Dr. Hayes continued, his eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "Like what?" Nathan asked, his protective instincts immediately alert. "Nothing harmful," Dr. Hayes assured him quickly. "But consider this: Lily's awareness, her focus, her ability to remain engaged with Echo for extended periods. These are all advanced capabilities for a child her age. What if the neural connection works both ways? What if Echo's innate animal instincts, focus, awareness, intuition, are enhancing Lily's development just as her healing abilities are enhancing his?" It was a startling perspective that Emily hadn't considered. She looked at Lily with fresh eyes, noticing how her daughter seemed more alert, more coordinated, more focused than before the connection began. Was it merely coincidence, or was something more profound occurring? Dr. Mitchell had been quietly observing their discussion. There's precedent for this in the limited research on human-animal bonds. Studies of children who grow up with working animals, particularly intelligent species like dogs, horses, or certain birds, show enhanced development of certain cognitive and emotional capacities. Empathy, nonverbal communication, even immune system function. She paused thoughtfully. But nothing approaching the magnitude of what we're witnessing here. As if to underscore the point, Lily suddenly looked up from her blocks and made a soft warbling sound. Not a typical baby noise, but something that sounded almost like a bear cub's contact call. Echo immediately responded with an identical vocalization from his enclosure. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, stunned. "She's mimicking his sounds." "Or they're developing a shared language," Dr. Hayes suggested, hastily recording the interaction. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep in her crib, Emily and Nathan sat on the small patio outside their sanctuary apartment, trying to process everything they were learning. "It's a lot to take in," Nathan admitted, his voice low to avoid waking Lily through the open window. "I keep thinking I'll wake up and find this was all some bizarre dream." Emily reached for his hand, finding comfort in its familiar warmth. "I know, but at the same time, seeing her with Echo, witnessing that connection, it feels right somehow, like something ancient and natural, not strange at all." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "I'm trying to wrap my head around what this means for her future, for our future as a family." It was the question that had been haunting them both. The immediate crisis of fleeing mysterious government interest had overshadowed the longer-term implications, but they couldn't avoid them forever. "Dr. Mitchell mentioned something today that's been on my mind," Emily said after a long pause. "She talked about eventual transition planning." Nathan nodded soberly. "I've been thinking about that too. Echo can't stay in captivity forever. He's a wild animal, meant to live in the forest. But if their connection is as deep as it seems, what will separation do to them?